job. See a few regulars here, so appreciate you guys coming back. Very excited here today to celebrate 12 Trips in 12 Months by Jen Ruiz. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Very exciting. She's here today in conversation with Angel Trinh. So it'll be about a 30-minute conversation between the two of them. We can open it up to a nice Q&A, and then lots of books to sign afterwards. So take it away. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Awesome. Jen, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Hi, yes, absolutely. First, thank you everybody for coming. I'm so excited to see so many smiling faces of what I imagine are many travel enthusiasts. I am about our adventures today, and my name is Jen Ruiz. For those of you who don't know me, I am the author of 12 Trips in 12 Months. I am a lawyer turned full-time travel blogger and a content creator at Jen on a Jet Plane. So today we're going to talk about this story, how I made that change, and basically some of my most memorable moments around the world that can hopefully inspire you and share something with you to help you be able to take more future adventures as well. And this is Angel. Angel is from Pennywise Traveler. Angel and I actually met at the New York Times travel show in 2020. She came to a talk that I was having about how I find affordable flights. And she is now, a big affordable flight person herself. She's so well-versed in points and miles. She can get almost anywhere for free. And so she has been gracious enough to join us today. And I'm so excited that we've come full circle now, 4 years later, having this conversation side by side. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. I never thought I would actually be in a bookshop with Jen as well. Like, to imagine, just 4 years ago, we just met at the New York Times travel show and I just barely started. And it's like full circle. Now we're sitting next to each other at a bookshop.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we're going to go through some sample questions for the book signing, and you're more than welcome to ask your questions later after we go through the live Q&A. So the first question is in your book, you talk about societal norms and stuff. So growing up, was that always a thing for you where your parents kind of pushed it on you for societal norms, or do you feel like you pressured yourself for societal norms?
That's a great question. So my journey started a lot with approaching 30. I imagine many of you, as you approach a milestone birthday, usually the decades, you start to wonder, have I accomplished what I wanted to do? Am I where I wanted to be by this point? You do like an audit of your life. And that was what was happening for me approaching 30, as I'd worked so hard to go straight through law school, be professionally accomplished. But I felt like there's so much pressure on women in particular to be married with children by then. And if you're not, then there's something wrong with you, right? Like you were the last person picked for dodgeball, and people want to know, what's your fatal flaw? What is it about you that has made you unpickable? And so I was facing that pressure approaching 30, and I realized that I wanted to celebrate that year and spend that last year of my 20s not trying to force this arbitrary outcome to happen, going on first dates, trying to find my person, like rushing against this clock, but instead finding a way to send off that year in a way that was memorable, in a way that was celebratory, and in a way that was in my control. So I've always had a thing where I like to travel for my birthday. I think it's such a wonderful way to mark the new year, particularly because I went to college in Miami. And so there, did you go to? Oh, wonderful. Congrats to your niece. We have definitely some parallel paths there. And so when in Miami, the big thing that they have there, the idea of a great successful birthday is having this sparkler cake at the club and having people out there and celebrating you in a VIP line. And I found that those birthdays were never really satisfactory for me. I found that I worked so hard appearance and I never actually enjoyed it. I would always be very stressed over who did or didn't show up. And when I traveled for my birthday the first time, I was like, wow, it really doesn't matter anything else that happens, any party that I have, just by making this memory of going somewhere new on my birthday, I feel like I've celebrated myself in the best way. And so I started my 29th birthday in Athens at the Parthenon. And it was there that I thought to myself, I've been so good about these rules. I haven't ever had a birthday that was more than 24 hours. I haven't made anybody do week-long or month-long celebrations with me. So why can't I, for my 30th, make an exception and celebrate myself? One trip every single month, one birthday extravaganza, right? To send out my 20s, because this was the last time I was going to be in my 20s. I think there's great things about every decade, but there was no denying that you have your most energy, like your most carefree, like, your peak physical ability as the younger that you are. And so I didn't want to waste that. I wanted to really take advantage of that. So I set out to take one trip every single month. My parents were definitely a little bit concerned. My mom still to this day tracks my location everywhere I am. Like even yesterday, she was like, I see you've been diverted to Atlanta, which is great. But they've always been very supportive. I think the pressure was much more self-imposed because I felt that as a woman, you're told, you're never going to have any other connection like you will with your child. It's the purest love you ever have. And the happiest day of your life is the day you get married, right? All these things that people tell you growing up all the time. And so I was like, well, I don't want to miss out on any of those things, right? Understandably. So it was much more self-imposed pressure that now at 36 and still not married and still no children, I have had to learn to temper, and I've had to learn to be okay in my own company and really be okay in my own timeline. Understanding that things happen for me as they come and that maybe it's all happening the way that it's supposed to.
Oh, I thought I heard something too.
I thought I did something.
Oh, it's okay.
Maybe there's a ghost. Hi.
Yeah, I thought I heard something. It's okay. I know. So for having said that, so like, do you felt like you always put pressure on yourself? Your parents, did they ever pressure you or not really? Was it more self-imposed, like growing up?
Not really, because my mom, this is an interesting question. I haven't really had people go in depth about my parents, but I talk about them a lot in the book. And there's actually a trip that we take together in August, where it's really interesting because it was after my grandfather passed. So it was like a unique celebration of life where we took that opportunity to go, the three of us, to Canada. My mom, my dad, and myself, my stepdad that I call my dad because he's amazing. And that was such a wonderful trip. I realized that my mom had always, she married young, and I'm Puerto Rican. And so there, it was, you marry early and you marry for life. And so my mom, when she got divorced after, being married for 17 years, it was very much an act of bravery and rebellion and of showing me that it's okay to put your needs first. And so I've always had a good role model in my family and knowing that it's okay to favor yourself, and it's okay to bet on yourself, and it's okay to, invest in yourself. And so my parents actually, when they were both, my mom was a principal and my stepdad was engineer, and they both invested and started a business after 40, which was such a great, they were great role models for me because they showed me that even putting aside their life savings, taking this big risk to start a preschool, which is now, very successful, it showed me that it's okay. It's okay to change paths. It's okay to take risks. You're never too old, and so I think I've had great role models in them. And when I transitioned from law to doing this full time, they actually told me, Jen, we have no idea what it is that you do. No idea how you make money, no idea what you do on the computers or the internet, but we believe that if anybody can do it, we know that you can. So we support you 100%.
Oh, that's great. You always had like the parental support and everything. Because it is like a struggle bus, like professional job as like an attorney, switching to like a travel content creator where sometimes you might not know where the income is coming from. You have to work on these like different deals and everything, like brand partnerships and also your own blog. So it's a lot of time invested in something that's totally different.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I do recognize, and I even still right now to this day, as I'm accomplished, hi Milena, in my field, I think my greatest advantage, ace up my sleeve, is really just having the support of my parents, the unconditional love, knowing that if anything happens, they're there to catch me. It's what has allowed me to take these bold risks, because I feel like even if I fall, somebody will pick me up and dust me off. Like last year was a tough year for me. It's going to be the sequel for this book, by the way, guys. But it felt like that. Like I had like a Humpty Dumpty moment where I fell off the wall, and my mom just like put the pieces back together again. It's okay. We're going to just reassemble you and put you back out into the world better than you came. And so it really is a relationship that I don't ever take for granted. They just recently, we moved to be for the first time within an hour of each other. And I love having them so close by. I love spending time with them because I really value them. I think they're They're the reason why I'm here and I'm able to really take risks on myself. I think it's, really amazing.
I mean, even if you're a travel writer for, a publisher, whether it's a magazine or a newspaper or small town, big town, that being on staff, being, having articles published for nothing, pennies, but because your parents valued education and they were supportive. Like I have a family member who went to law school and now she did like practicing, and she's a children's cookbook author, and it's called Handstand Books. And, I mean, her stuff sells in Walmart, Amazon. They're like little cooking, everything you would imagine.
Yeah.
Books from all over the, for kids. So that's what she did. They had their own business, and her parents were really supportive. And she didn't have kids.
Yeah.
She married, she just got married last year, and she's, 48 years old, so and during COVID, they were putting together kits. So, but because of the pressure and stress you would have with a newspaper or a magazine or just getting pennies, for your articles, you're going to have some. I'm sounding like
no, go ahead.
You're gonna, there's going to be some, bumps in the road.
Sure.
And it sounds like that's amazing that you talk about it.
Absolutely. We do talk about the bumps in the road in the book. We talk about a lot of bumps. About halfway through the challenge, there is a point where I'm like, well, what is happening with the disaster trip in Mexico where everything goes wrong and there's a storm that literally follows me there the day I arrive and leaves the day I leave and cancels all my plans. But yes, I think that having that support system is amazing. And, for all of you that maybe don't have that same relationship with your parents, I think that we find that support with our friends that become family. But it is really wonderful to have those connections. And ultimately in the story, I think that that's the message that I want to resonate, is that even when you're traveling solo, you're never alone, right? You're always meeting and making connections with these people around the world. That disaster trip in Mexico, where my whale watching trip was canceled, I was going to go swim with whale sharks. I ended up actually scuba diving for the first time at an underwater museum in Mexico and going to dive shop where I was trying to find plans and I was scrambling before the storm came in. They had already canceled the whale shark swimming, and I found a dive shop and they said, if you can get here before the rain starts, we'll take you down. So I got there and it was a bunch of men that were in the shop and they were all watching a soccer game on the TV. And so, how difficult it had to be for them at that point to turn off the TV so I could watch my PADI training video. I felt like that was the ultimate act of them being like, okay, like, yes, please enjoy your day. It was such a self-sacrifice because it was like a 2-hour PADI video. So they missed the match. And then afterwards, they made me fresh ceviche, where they said, here in Mexico, the ceviche that you're eating was just swimming in the ocean a minute ago. So it's super fresh. And that was a day where everything went wrong. But ultimately, at the end of it, things went right. And I think that that's the beauty of travel, is that you find that as you are going on these journeys and having these experiences, that things do work out as they're meant to.
Yeah, and then for those that don't know, recently Jen won an award too from Wonderful for her story for Puerto Rico, where she was giving more attention for like traveling to Puerto Rico.
Yes. So I've won a couple of travel writing awards, which helps with the pennies, because then you can be like, I won an award, pay me more than pennies. But that one was on why you shouldn't cancel your visit to Puerto Rico after the hurricane. I think Puerto Rico gets a lot of negative press after a hurricane because a press likes to be a sensationalist. So they show flooding, they show the most damage. They don't really show, the repairs, people working to make things better. And then scared. I know a lot of people contacted me in September talking about canceling their January trips. So I wrote this article hoping to curtail some of that and hoping to encourage people to still travel even with the news and that media, because Puerto Rico in particular is very well versed with hurricanes. Like everybody there is prepared to deal with a hurricane. San Juan is up and running almost immediately because there's backup generators everywhere. So I like to share that, and I like to share those stories and the angles, and hopefully use travel writing as a method to promote these businesses and these initiatives around the world. I think a lot about an article I wrote about the last pearl diver in Qatar
Mhm.
and how it was a really unique time where it went to the market, and I had an interview with him, and he seemed like definitely like he was a muscle man, and he had had a long history of diving and collecting pearls. But it was really interesting, the answers that I got to my questions when I was like, did you keep any pearls? And he's like, no, of course not. Like, pearls are for the money. You go to get the pearls and you get it to sell it. Like, nobody keeps the pearls. You have to sell it to make a livelihood. And it was so interesting to learn about this whole industry that was the basis of Qatar before manufactured pearls came around. And then all of a sudden, this whole craft that drives an economy is now obsolete. And so being able to tell these stories and the history of this man, and it's really a privilege to travel the world and highlight these people.
In the book, you took a travel challenge where you, while employed full-time as an attorney, what tips do you have for those who want to incorporate more travel into their busy lives?
Yes. So one of the big shifts that I made, so when I first started practicing law, I worked at a Social Security disability law firm, and I was taking 12 hearings a week. I was working, all holidays. And so when I made the switch from private to nonprofit, I got the gift of time. I all of a sudden had bank holidays, these amazing things where you get off on random Monday for President's Day. Got a gratuitous Monday off because 4th of July was on a Tuesday. So they just gave us the 3rd off on the Monday. And I was like, what is this? What world is this? So just with those 10 days of regular PTO, 5 days of sick leave, and then the bank holidays, I was able to take a grand total of 20 trips to 41 cities across 11 countries. I went to destinations like Ecuador, Thailand, Cambodia, Iceland, Greece, Italy, bunch of places. And so I did all of that while being back in time for court on Monday morning. And it was interesting. Ooh, pardon me, my little mic thing has dropped. It was definitely not something that I think at 36 I would have the same energy to maintain, because it was a couple of things. First, I would leave, let's say I'd take a Friday off. I could leave Thursday night, take a red-eye flight, particularly for these cross-Atlantic flights to Europe, because you can get a nonstop flight to Ireland, to Portugal, things like that. And then once you land, if let's say you sleep somewhat on the plane, you just hit the ground running. And then you can have a solid 2 or 3 days in these metropolitan centers where you can see a lot and take an easy day trip out. So these European and these big cities are really wonderful for those quick visits over long weekends. And then the longer trips that you're trekking pretty far, like the Asia trips. Well, actually, Asia is not too far from you guys, for you guys here in California.
Like 12 hours, yeah.
For you, probably like Puerto Rico would be the further trip. But for those trips where you're going further, I would just recommend planning it ahead of time and planning it around a holiday. So let's say that you already have, Veterans Day off that Monday. You can take 2 days off and turn that into a 6-day trip or something of the sort. So red-eye flights, combining it with the days that you have off, putting it in advance so that it's already on the schedule of where you're working, coordinating with, hi Mike. Coordinating with coworkers so that they are stepping in if anything happens and they need to cover you. But really understanding, because I think that we have this toxic culture in the US where we do not condone taking time off. It's looked at really poorly. And so, especially as an attorney, I found that whenever I did take time off, I would come back and I would sense some resentment that I took that time that I was allotted, and that was part of my compensation package and my salary. And so with the US, we are so attached to our work, and our productivity is such a marker of our worth that we are like, you can still reach me when I'm abroad. Even if I'm in the middle of the mountain, I will have my satellite dish. So if anything happens, like, I will be available for you. And that's really nuts. And so I think it was pushing back against that and being like, these days have been allocated to me. These days are mine to take. And so I'm going to take them, and I'm going to take them guilt-free. An example of that was a sick day that I took to fly in a hot air balloon at the International Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque, which is the biggest hot air balloon fiesta in the world. And I know this little mic has been a little pain, but it's okay. We're gonna rescue it. I'm just gonna put it in my lap. It's the biggest hot air balloon fiesta in the world. So you actually don't have to go to Cappadocia to have these massive, balloons flying up at the same time. And during mass ascension, which is a special event that they have, you have 300 balloons that all go up at the same time, and they're all different shapes. I mean, I saw a pink elephant. I saw Yoda from Star Wars, like all in the shape of the balloons. It was so whimsical. And I called out sick that morning around 5 a.m. while they were blowing up the balloon behind me with the fire, you know, like, I'm not going to make it today. So sorry. See you tomorrow. And hung up. And I never once, you know, as I was sitting there in this amazing experience, seeing all these balloons rise at the same time, being in my first hot air balloon ride, just in the middle of the year, I didn't think to myself, wow, I really wish I was in my windowless office right now fighting with a lawyer. Like I never once regretted taking that day. And it was just such a marvelous memory. So I do recommend that you take your time off and do so guilt-free.
When you made the transition from private to like nonprofit, did you choose it mostly because of like benefits, PTO, or did you felt like you were too drained out as private, so you wanted more flexibility in being nonprofit?
Benefits, PTO, and then also loan forgiveness. That was a big incentive in switching over. So I was initially going to do the 10-year loan forgiveness plan, and it was really interesting when I chose to abandon that path. You know, do I want to spend another 8 years finishing the loan forgiveness so I can get the public service loan forgiveness, or of my like prime, right? Like, so now this is the 8 years of the youngest I'll ever be again. Or do I want to just say, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll pay home. That's why we have payment plans and, you know, things like that, and live my life, live my 30s, you know. And honestly, the experiences that I have, you know, being with a Bedouin tribe in the middle of Petra, Jordan, going, you know, rappelling off the cliffs in Ecuador, you know, going into the volcano in Iceland, volunteering with elephants in Thailand. I've never once regretted having those memories and living my life. And so it wasn't necessarily the wisest financial decision, and that's okay. I think it's okay to be a little bit irresponsible every now and then and just live your life and make those memories. And so I made that choice, and I don't regret it.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I thought I heard something like I heard, yeah.
I was going to actually say, I'm sorry to.
No, you
I know
can,
there's
you
some
can,
amazing travelers, because I'm like hearing people talk, and we're not. The reason we travel so well together is because we have the same pace. 27 years, you know, people can't keep up with us, so we do our thing. But anyway, so my husband, I'm sorry to say, worked for Barnes & Noble bookstores for 34 years. He's retired. Store. That was 34 years, and it was a company owned by the 51% Len Maggio in New York, and they had a policy of every 30-year an option of a $6,000 trip anywhere in the world plus extra vacation time. We did 3 weeks, and they gave us bucks, and we booked through their travel agency, and we went to Prague and France, through Deauville, Alsace, and Lake Lucerne, and it was just beautiful. And so, and that because, you know, they're every 30-year employee in the country was able to do this, but now it's a different corporation.
Yeah.
Anymore, but they, you know, it was amazing that they offered that.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'll take benefits that don't exist anymore for 500, Alex, right? Like, it's not a thing at all, but what wonderful. And that's another part of it too, right? That maybe before there, you could justify that kind of loyalty, and I'm going to be here forever, and I'm not going to take the sick days if there was that, you know, package waiting for you at the end. But now it really is like you barely even I didn't get health benefits. Like it felt like you barely get anything. And so to have that, you know, and be working so hard for a company that's really not providing you with that 30-year, you know, pension and the amazing, like that, those are benefits that don't exist anymore. And so I do think that that's another added reason to really choose yourself, right? They say, you know, that when you're gone, that company's going to replace you in a minute. And so what's more important is you living your life, you spending time with your loved ones, but also you, for me, exploring and really feeling like you have done the things that you wanted to do. I think there's nothing worse than a life that you have regrets and what ifs. No, you're okay.
No,
Please, we love that
yeah,
you being
we're-
engaged. Yes.
We love hearing the feedback. Yeah. Taking 12 trips in a year sounds expensive. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're able to afford travel, particularly without anyone to split costs with?
Sure. So let's talk about cheap flights. Is that something that here people care about? Anybody?
Mhm.
Okay. So great. No, you don't care about it? What about cheap business class flights? No?
Oh.
Wow. Because Angel can help you with that. Yes. Flight. So if you're somebody that has a big bucket list trip that you want to take, I recommend redirecting your spending onto a travel credit card so that you can maximize those earnings. You can even get points and miles without a travel credit card if you're somebody who's weary about taking out a new card. Account, you can get points and miles for your Lyft rides, your Starbucks purchases, even your Ticketmaster. So let's say you pay $1,000 for Taylor Swift tickets, you can get 1,000 Delta miles for that. So points and miles, great way, and it's basically free travel because you're just redeeming that for the flight and you just pay taxes and fees. That's how people fly these amazing business class flights all over the world. Second guaranteed way to find cheap flights is budget airlines. Previously frowned upon, thought to be, Spirit, horrible flying experience. Now they're really much more common. It's really an a la carte pricing model. So you pay for your base fare and then you pay for the things that you're adding as well. I recommend here in California that you look into French B. You can get to Tahiti for $300 and some other places that can get you overseas. North Atlantic Airways will get you to Europe, let's say for $400 round trip. So check out budget airlines. And then also, flight alert programs. So if you're somebody who's open to, chasing the deal, not necessarily the destination, I recommend signing up for flight alert programs, Going, Thrifty Traveler. They will send you alerts. They have people there looking 24 hours a day, being like, what are the deals? And then when there is something, they will send you a notification and you can choose to purchase it or not. It's not always last minute. Some of them could be months out, could be during a time that you want to travel. People think, oh, I have to leave tomorrow kind of thing. It's not the case. Or, oh, it's only on Spirit. It can be in all kinds of airlines. But it is a matter of booking quickly when that deal arises. Recently, some great deals that I've seen via flight alerts include $120 round trip to Ireland. That was a mistake there, leaving from New York. And then also $99 flights to Paris. And I do recommend that you search all airports because for deals like that, I've seen it as low as $73 a flight from Pittsburgh to Japan. I think for that price, I can figure out how to get to Pittsburgh, right? So similarly, for you, just leave your airports open so that you have your options. Yeah. And then I think with those tricks, you should be able to find cheap flights anywhere around the world.
So when you had that, when you were working as a lawyer, was it hard that you had to pay a little bit more to leave on a Friday? Or would you leave Thursday night to be slightly cheaper?
You can check that out. There is definitely leaving on a Friday, coming back on a Sunday are the more expensive days. If you can swing it beyond that, it makes a difference. But when you go on Google Flights, instead of putting in your specific date, just click so you can see the full calendar view and the days will pop up in green when they're the cheapest and red when they're more expensive. And that gives you an idea too of what the prices are going to be without having to put in your particular days. Because once you put in the particular days, the cookies start tracking those days. And I feel like the prices keep hiking up like while you're there in 2 seconds of the same, like a different price. So I avoid putting in my days and I just like to browse the calendar so they don't know what days I'm looking at. I sometimes try to even check it out. I'll look for the same dates like a month prior just to get an idea of what the times are of the flight. But it's like, you don't know that I'm actually trying to go the month later. Ha ha ha. Cookies.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also set up flight alerts too on the Google Flights too, just to track the pricing. And then depending on the airline, sometimes they might give you a flight credit if you book like a refundable flight or so.
Southwest.
Yeah. Yeah. So during your year of adventure, you found, we just went over that one. Your book doesn't shy away from tackling some of the tough moments while traveling alone, like safety. What advice do you have for someone who might be nervous to take their first solo trip?
Yeah. Has anybody here traveled solo? Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Some of the things that I found were really empowering for me and that really helped me take those first steps. First, I researched. When I was starting out, knowledge is power, right? And I'm sure everybody here agrees because you're all readers and you all like information. For me, knowing where am I going, what is a train schedule? How far is the train from my hotel? What does the walk look like? What's the best way to connect? I would even do Google Street View when I was starting out, just to get an idea of, is this a sketchy place? What is happening? And that helped me feel a lot more secure when I was going to places that I wasn't sure about. As I went on, I was able to take things a little bit less rigidly, didn't have to plan everything out like to the minute. But when I was getting started and when I was uncertain of myself, that was a safety net, knowing that I had that plan and knowing that I wasn't going to be walking around looking lost, trying to figure out where I'm going next, looking like a target. I was going to be walking with purpose. I had a very clear schedule, places to be, people expecting me, things like that. And also, I think that helps because you're not then on your trip being like, oh, what should I do? What tickets should I buy? I think that kind of wastes valuable time on your trip. So you should absolutely try to secure all of that before you go, so you can make sure, like, for instance, if you don't get your Anne Frank tickets in Amsterdam before you go there, like, good luck getting them that day. It's a minimum 3-hour wait. And that's just so much time to be wasted on your wonderful vacation when it's better to just stroll on in. So I think there's something to be said for planning. And there's definitely an element of that can make your vacation a lot easier. But also traveling solo, I think one of the biggest hesitations for me was going out at night, because I wanted to explore all of these neighborhoods, but I was nervous about doing so on my own. So a way that I found around that was that I started going on walking tours, food tours, anything where there's a designated group that I'm going to be a part of for 3 to 4 hours. There's a guide that's helping me navigate the space. And then at the end, maybe, the people that I've been on the tour with now, we want to go and do something else afterwards. I think that was very common. And so that was an easy way to hop into an activity. In Athens, I did a cocktail tour, right? Versus me, like, timidly going into cocktail bars, not really knowing what's going on. Now it's me, my guide, who knows the bartender, knows that, gets our drinks. We have our table. It feels much more comfortable and safe. And you're experiencing places that you might not have gone to on your own. So I highly recommend that as a hack for anybody that's nervous about a place. I did a haunted walking tour in New Orleans, because New Orleans is a party city, right? Everybody's out there, everybody's drinking their hurricanes. And I wanted to go out at night too, but I needed to get my feet wet. So we did a haunted walking tour. I don't think I was ready for how haunted New Orleans is. It's extremely haunted. There's you can have dinner with a ghost there. That's an actual experience. You pay for it, and the ghost is known to live there. He sits next to you. You can get the pictures. He's been caught. They know the spirit before. I would not personally pay for that experience, but I found it so fascinating and really cool, and such a great way to explore New Orleans at night, at a place where you might be intimidated to go out because it is such a drinking heavy culture. So that was a great way around it, and I recommend that for anybody.
Did you found it also cheaper that you book stuff in advance as well for your activities?
Absolutely. You can save money that way. And I would sometimes look for things like free admission days. With the Amsterdam example, the Van Gogh Museum on Fridays after a certain time has reduced admission. So I would take advantage of those things and try to plan that around my schedule as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of good deals too.
Absolutely.
So throughout the book, we see you transform into a more confident person and start to embrace your own company. Can you talk more about the notion of transformative travel?
Yeah. So one of the things bless you. One of the things I love most about travel is, besides how empowering it is that it's a hack to living in the moment. I found that I am constantly in my head. I'm constantly thinking and ruminating about the past or worried about the future. But when I'm traveling, it's a bombarding of your senses, right? You have new smells, new sounds, new people, new things, new sights. And it's so engaging. You're taking in so much in the moment that you don't have the chance to be in your head. And for me, that was so freeing. I just found that I was lighter when I traveled, right? I wasn't as heavy. And that was that feeling that I was chasing throughout the year. And I found that's where that phrase, solo travel magic, came from. Because I found that as I chased that feeling more and more, I myself was emanating a different energy. So maybe previously in law, where I'm combative with people all the time, right? I found that people did have a tendency to run away from me. But when I was in this energy of, I'm curious, I want to explore, I want to get to know things more, people were attracted to me. And that's why I coined solo travel magic, because I really do believe that if you put yourself out there, amazing things will happen. An example of this was when I went to the trip in Italy. and I went to an opera in a church, a small church, which, you know, the acoustics, amazing in there. And I got there early, which for Italian time meant really, really early. Meant I was like the only person there, right? Because they show up fashionably late for everything. But because of this, I didn't have anybody else to talk to. I was there by myself. If I had been there with somebody else, we probably would have sat in our seats and chatted until the show began. But because I was alone, I had the chance to interact more with the people around me. And so the staff members that were there, we talked, I asked them questions. I learned about the history of the church. I learned about their opera production. And then in the middle of the opera, at the intermission, they decided to announce a change in programming to dedicate a song to a very special lady in the front row. And I looked around and I was like, who's the special lady? And the lady was me. The man started singing to me. This Italian man is sitting in front of me in his amazing baritone voice and serenading me. And I am just blown away because that would have never happened if I hadn't been traveling alone. It would have never happened if I didn't put myself out there in that setting and been curious and was asking them questions and had the chance to talk with them beforehand. And that's that example of solo travel magic, where if you put yourself out there, if you're just curious, if you want to get to know the world will reward you in the most unexpected ways.
Have you ever considered doing hostels, or was hostels like your past life before you did the 12 trips?
I've never considered doing hostels. And here's why. Because I live alone, I'm used to like having the temperature setting be my setting. And I'm used to having like the noise be controlled and like the lights be controlled. And so sleeping in other rooms with people, I've heard that in like instances, they just get up and turn off your air conditioning. I can't imagine. So I would stay in a hostel if it was a private room. My general rule is that I need there to be a deadbolt between me and the rest of the world at night. I think it helps me feel safe. You know, even recently on safari, I didn't stay in a tented camp because it was weird to me that anybody, like, I don't know how it works, but I was like, what if somebody can just untent my thing, right? I need the deadbolt. I need the deadbolt to feel safe. And that said, I will stay in budget accommodations as long as I have, and I've even stayed in places with shared bathrooms, but it's not my preferred. I like to have my own because it's just nice to decompress at the end of the day and take a hot shower. Linda was telling me how she went rafting and went to the Rogue River where you can actually stop and go to lodges instead of having a tent on your rafting trip. And I was like, that's my kind of adventure. Because a hot shower at the end of the day is so lovely. So I will stay somewhere with a ensuite, private room, deadbolt. And I actually look more importantly to the guest rating for a hotel where they stayed. If it's a 1-star hotel, but people have had a 10-star experience there, like 10 out of 10 guest rating, great. I'll stay there. That's more important to me than like it being a 5-star, amazing hotel, as long as I have all of my basic needs met. But because of that, I do not stay with shared rooms. No, sorry. But no issues with anybody who does.
So how would you rank like finding like hotels and stuff? Because it's like, was it hard for you to budget those just because you were willing to pay more for that versus staying in a hostel or like Airbnb? Like you were like, well, at least a hotel, it's not as quiet as like an Airbnb is just like renting out someone's room. At least I have some social atmosphere.
Even an Airbnb, I would run out a private Airbnb. I like my social atmosphere to be on my own terms. When I am ready to leave this house and now be social, I'm ready, right? But like I want to have a place where I can come and be not social. And I enjoy that. So I think there's not any one price guarantee. Like there's not any one place where you're like, oh, Airbnb is going to be better or hotels are going to be better. You just have to check it everywhere that you go. And I would pick a place. It is more expensive. I think with that in mind, if that's a concern of yours, as a general rule, it doesn't, apply everywhere, but as a general rule, southern places are more affordable than northern places. So once you get to like Finland, like Iceland, like Norway, all those places, insanely expensive, like really, really tough to find a place to stay. Even the most basic places, like $300 a night minimum. But the more south you go, Vietnam, South America, things like that, you can find. My room in Cambodia was $9 a night. My room in Bali was $11 a night. So I had a month for $300. And it was a, private room. I had breakfast provided every day. Amazing. So I think that's maybe a general rule that you can follow depending on where you are. And then like, as you advance in life and your budget grows more, you can, do the fancier trips, the fjord cruise and all those things.
Yeah. So for your safari trip, where did you sleep then?
I slept in a lodge. So I stayed in a lodge, a Masai Mara lodge that was like a middle ground accommodation. So you had your tented lodges that were the basic, you had your middle ground, and you had your super luxury. I stayed in the middle ground. So I had a 4-day safari to Masai Mara National Park, private guide, private Jeep and everything. And, game drives for about $1,500 for 4 days. I thought that was pretty good. I'm sorry?
Not counting airfare.
Not counting airfare, but I don't pay that much to get there.
No, but it doesn't count airfare.
No, not including airfare.
So because we did that too. We went to Kenya and also, by the way, the tents are not all basic because we stayed in
I figured.
camp and they were fancy.
I figured that was the case. I just wanted to double check for my own preference, but I figured there has to be something. And I saw people that have honeymooned in them, and they definitely have. They have levels to the tents. Some of those tents can get really to be amazing. So I agree. But yeah, the flights to Africa are more expensive, and inter-Africa flights are also very expensive. That is an exception. For something like that, I would recommend points and miles if you know you want to make it. I would recommend that over, like I saw somebody today that was like, oh, I use my points and miles to get to Portugal. And that's fine, but you can get to Portugal so affordably that I would save that for something like New Zealand, something like Kenya, something that you don't find deals to very often.
Are there any tools that you bring as a solo traveler with you to make you feel more safe?
I have a whistle. I have a Scottish antler whistle that I got. I like it a lot. I just think it's an easy thing. You can have it on your keychain and feel kind of safe with that. I mentioned that my mom tracks my phone all the time. I do think that that's important. I have a backup battery because there's so many things on your phone now. I think before people would think, oh, it's for pictures. No, it's your GPS. It's your translator. When I was in Japan, I would use Google Translate to look at every menu because they didn't have an English menu for many things. And so this is how I know what's happening. Sometimes I can even get it to, translate words if I need to communicate with someone and I show them the text or put my address to the driver. So I can't ever have my phone die. So I always have at least 2 backup batteries with me at all times. And then beyond that, I don't think I have a couple of things for comfort, but safety wise, I think, I did a safety segment actually for the Morning on Merritt Street with Dr. Phil Network. And we talked about Life Straw, which is the personal filtration device. So if you are going somewhere where you're concerned about having water, I think that's a good one to bring. Tummy problems are not great. We talked about the carbon monoxide detector. There's a really portable one that you can bring. So if you are going to rentals or somewhere that maybe doesn't have that already built in, that's a good one to bring with you. Something really small and just, affordable, less than $20. So you can just bring it as an extra precaution. And then generally splash proof bags or things like that. My friend Yumi has a company called Flex and Fly. But something where you have your belongings close to you on your person. And I think beyond that, should be good. The planning, I think, is the biggest safety tool that you can do.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like when you were going through your 12 trips that you felt close to towards pickpocketing, or you're very aware just from your lawyer background?
Pickpocketing is definitely more common in certain places. Barcelona has a big pickpocketing problem. And so you'll be aware of that when you go places. I think a big tip I like to do is, especially for solo female travelers, I'll pop into Facebook groups, because there are Facebook groups dedicated for solo female travelers and even women. Journey Woman is a blog for women over 50 that are traveling, and they share tips. And so you can go in there and be like, hey, what is the biggest scam that's going on right now? What is something I should be aware of? Is there anything I should know? What is the best way to get to the hotel from the airport? I got scammed going from the airport in Argentina, immediately. I got the cab, we got to the place, and I had cash that I'd just taken out from the airport. And it was something like, $20 or something like that. I'm just making up numbers. And I gave him a 50, and then he gave me back change for a smaller bill. And I was like, no, I gave you a 50. And he denied that I had given him that bigger bill. So already, I just landed and I'm having already a not great experience. So if it's possible, I do recommend that you sort out your airport transportation ahead of time, just so you don't start off on the wrong foot. And I've learned certain things like always announce how much you're giving. I'm giving you a $50 bill, or pay with a credit card wherever possible. Don't ride in the front seat of an Uber, even in some places where they try to encourage that because Uber isn't necessarily sanctioned. So a lot of things that I've learned along the way that are now extra precautions that I take. But I think if you're somebody who's not aware or learning as you go, that there are groups and resources where you can connect with people on the ground that can help you.
Yeah, that's great. Throughout the book, there were so many amazing destinations featured in your book. What were one or two experiences that you had an impact on you, and why?
Perfect. And let's get a quick time check. So I want to make sure we have enough time for questions. But I think we can wrap this up with this one and then open up for questions soon.
6:45.
Yeah, because we're going for a while, girl.
Oh, sorry.
It's going to get dinner time soon. People are hungry. I will wrap it up with this one before we open up to questions. Some of my favorite experiences in the book. I talk a lot, and it depends on like what kind of memory. So I talk a lot about the south of France, and I mentioned it earlier today because it was a place where I felt the most calm. There's a place in the south of France called the Gorge du Verdon that's considered the Grand Canyon of Europe, and it has this beautiful turquoise water. And I was there on a weekday where I would normally be in my office fighting with people. And I remember just being so removed from everything in this really peaceful place where nothing bad was happening. And it just seemed like another world, right? And it was, as I'm sitting there, and I really think back fondly on the I felt there, right? There was no to get anywhere. There was nothing that had to be done. I could just enjoy that beautiful moment, the scenery, the perfect weather. So that really sticks with me as a meaningful trip. Angkor Wat is the biggest religious monument in the world. It is incredible. It has more temples than you can possibly explore in a week. And I had a private guide there. And I remember that because it felt so luxurious. For $100 for the day, this person drove me around in like the Range Rover, and they had the Range Rover, whatever. The really luxurious thing was that in the back seat, they had with wet, cold towels. So after I finished exploring a temple, I got to take a wet, cold towel and dab myself like royalty. It felt so wonderful, right? It was such a wonderful experience. And then just learning from him, having him show me, this, depending on who was in charge at the time, if it was Buddhist or if it was Hinduism, they would actually change the carvings on the temples, from up to down to reflect their ruling religion. So seeing how stone carvings were changed over centuries, depending on the rulers and how this amazing monument has formed. Amazing, like just incredible memories. Going into the volcano. Who could say they've been into a volcano? Like, that's pretty cool to be in a magma chamber and see the colors that the fire formed around you, how many different caves and tunnels there are once you're in there. I did that in Iceland. It's one of the only places in the world where you can do that. So many great memories. And I just really hope that in sharing these with you, that it's hopefully sparked a little bit of your sense of adventure and gotten you thinking of how you can incorporate your life with more travels, although I know many of you are frequent travelers already. Thank you for being here. Yes.
Have you almost run out of places to go?
I actually am scared that I won't have enough time to see all the places. Yes. Because I think the more you go, you realize how many places there are to see and how little you've seen so far, because you disregard entire areas of the world that you don't know enough about. I didn't know anything about Central Asia before I went there. And then my first trip to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. And now I want to go back to Uzbekistan and, get the beautiful pictures with the tile. I disregarded the Middle East for so long. So I didn't know how much was happening there. And then I went to Qatar, I went to Egypt, I went to Jordan, which was one of the most incredible trips I've had so far. And now I'm like, whoa, every time I go to the Middle East, I feel like it's an incredible bucket list experience. And I want to see more of this, like no other place like it. I think the more I go, the more I realize how many cool places there are to see that I didn't even know about, because geography isn't our strong suit here in the US. It's just not, So the more I discover and the more I see myself, the more I realize, wow, there's still so much to do. I know you would think it's the opposite, but no, I actually have to.
No, because the more you know about something, the more you find out how little you know.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, but if you ever need a partner,
Thank you. Yes.
Did you
make any friends? And if so, do you still talk to them today?
Yes, lots of them. So in the first chapter, we talk about my big fat Italian family and how on a tour to Meteora, Greece, I got adopted by a 9-person Italian family that it was just us on a tour, the 9-person Italian family and me. And initially I was like, this is going to be an interesting tour. And then at the end of it, they were all really friendly and they were like, Jen, do you want to come with us? Because we only saw like 3 and there were about 6. That day I ended up in the back of a van with squished between the brother and the sister of the 9-person Italian family with a bunch of people speaking Italian in a situation that likely, you wouldn't recommend others to get into. This seems like perhaps you're getting trafficked, but I was like, if this is a trafficking situation, like this was very convincing. Look alike. The child actors are on point. Like this was very well produced. And so I went with my gut and I, thought to myself, this would be a good experience. We had a great time exploring the monasteries. And then really, so the uncle, very well traveled. The uncle in that family has been to like over 150 countries. I think he's going to hit every country in the world. We still talk all the time and I follow his adventures. We're linked on social media. The brother that was next to me, he ended up starting a blog. And then he messaged me to let me know that it was because he had met me and that experience helped shape that trajectory for him. I'm sorry.
Where in Italy were they from?
We're in Italy. I think from all over. Their family was from all over. The uncle was based in Milan, but they were spread out. Yeah, because I think the family had come for that reunion trip. But yeah, so it really is interesting. And then to see it come full circle and people reach out to me afterwards and be like, this affected me. This changed, the things that I chose to do. So yes, I do still. My hosts in Bali that invited me to the Balinese temple with them and, shared their clothing with me and were really like family to me at that point. We still talk all the time. They are always commenting on my things like sending you love from your family in Bali. And so, yes. And I think that's the magic of social media nowadays, that you can stay connected with these people and that they can see what's going on. I think before you had postcards, letters and things like that. And so it's much easier now to keep in touch. And I'm happy to say that I have friends around the world.
Are you interested in being hosted by tour companies or you just want to travel solo?
I think it depends. I wouldn't be against a company. I don't think that I think especially for some things that's the best way to see it. Like if I wanted to go to Antarctica, like that's how you're going. So I would be open to it situationally on a case-by-case basis, but I do like to travel solo. I do. There's a freedom that comes with it, but I have gone on press trips as well with groups. Mm-hmm. Yes.
How do you find the day tours that you're talking about?
Yeah, so those day tours will vary. The apps will vary regionally. So for instance, when I was in Japan, there was an app called Klook, Klook, and that's where I booked my Mount Fiji day tour, which was amazing. And otherwise, I could maybe use like
Get Your
Airbnb.
Guide.
Yeah, Get Your Guide, Viator.
Tours by locals is a site that is around the world. Tours by locals.
Yes, that's another one.
Or Airbnb experiences too.
I did a photo tour in Bali that I booked through Airbnb experiences. Get Your Guide, absolutely.
That's a good one.
Yeah, excellent. Great suggestions. We crowdsourced this one, guys.
Thrillist.
Excellent. Thrillist. Perfect. Yeah. So many places to get day tours, but I think it is regionally specific sometimes, in that an app will maybe have more availability in some regions than others. And that's a good place too, to maybe ask a local and be like, what is the best app to use to book day tours from here?
I'm sure you run across places that you want to have your roots, stay there. You feel like it's hospitable enough, nurturing enough, where you want to spend more time. But I think there's the other thing, aspect, of course, I think it's going through our minds is when you leave because you like you say, you want to learn, but it takes you away from where you're at your home. Let's say here, it's a problem.
Yeah, that's a really interesting balance that you've brought up, right? So the desire to want to explore other things, but also the desire to want to have roots and establish a routine and have a life, and that's something that I've been really dealing with as I enter my 30s and my nesting stage and wanting to have that. It's really hard to live out of a suitcase. Everything is wrinkled. You have to keep repacking it. You're worried about weight limits. You can't buy any souvenirs. Like it's not great. So I have found that balance in. I recently purchased my first property. Last year, I bought an apartment in St. Petersburg, and I have that as my home base. And I love it. It makes me so happy because it's just this amazing place that I can go to at the end of the trip. Like I'm actually dreaming about it now. Like it's waiting for me. And I have my souvenirs that are hanging. So you go around the world. You go around the world in my house. My mom calls it the Museum of Jen. It's so amazing. Like I have my cuckoo clock. I have my Turkish rug. I have like my Rwandan gorilla carving. So a bunch of different things. And I love having that space to display your travels, to come back home, and then taking the time to do, like 1 to 2 trips a month. I think that's been the balance that I've found because you're right. There is that desire to want to go explore more, but also to have. I think at some point I will move abroad. At this time, I want to be closer to my family where, my parents are aging and I want to spend time with them while I have them. But I think, later in life, somewhere. I've been to Greece already 5 times, and that moussaka, it speaks to my soul. And I've thought, how wonderful it would be to pull a Mamma Mia and go live in the middle of a Greek island. So that could. But for now, it is a balance that I'm striking with having a home base and then taking, trips from there.
And for those that don't know, Jen's first chapter is about Greece too.
It is.
Yeah.
The first and May. I go to Greece twice in the book.
I have an acquaintance who is a doctor. I follow her on Twitter. And right now she is in the Arctic.
Ooh.
With the polar bears. And
Excellent.
I forget the name of the town that you leave out of.
Hochschweiler?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to share this book with her because she's also a
Bibliophile. Yes, absolutely.
I apologize.
Yes, that's it.
Actually, I'm a retired teacher myself, so kudos to your parents.
Wonderful.
But, so I'm going to post this on her little message. I'm going to love this, and I'm going to take this home.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question. Because I haven't read the book, it sounds like you're sort of challenging norms, right, in terms of getting married, having children, etc. But I would, as you get older, you may want to continue to challenge norms because having roots, having a home is also
A norm. Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like you've got the tension there.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I'm saying this as somebody who joined the Foreign Service because I like to travel.
Yeah.
Lived and worked in over 100 countries.
Wow.
And I'm back here. I'm a native Californian, and I've come back after many decades. And now I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go. I don't want to put roots down.
Sure.
So I would just think, to allow yourself the flexibility not, to sell that place in St. Petersburg if you so feel inclined in the future.
I think that's a wonderful point. That is, I'm 100% there with you in that you should be free to follow where it goes at the moment.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. I think for me, because I hadn't had roots, I don't think I've ever had roots. I've never really had a place that I felt I could call home. So yeah, it's been a big itch I wanted to scratch, right? I really just, where are you from? It's such a complicated question. I just like to have one answer for that, So I think it's something where I wanted to feel like, and plus after, nearly 20 years of renting, how much have I spent on rent with nothing to show for it? So I wanted to feel like I'm making a simple move, like I can get in on it. And so I'm very happy about making that stage, but I agree that it's not for everyone. I think it depends on the people and where they're at. And I think one of the biggest things that I've realized with making the switch from law to this is that when I was in law school, I had my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan, my 20-year plan. I know what everything's going to look like. God bless you. I'm going to run for office. I'm going to be a judge. I'm going to do this, and I have no idea what my life is going to look like right now, like after September. And that's really crazy, but also fun and also exciting and also so different than the entire life that I had growing up where I knew where everything is going. So I have tried to embrace that element of the unknown and giving myself the grace to adapt with what comes that way. Right now, it does feel good, like a personal accomplishment to have a place where I can put down roots. And like I said, one day I might just be like, you know what? I'm off to go around the 200 or so Greek islands that they have, because they have so many. You think it's like 5, there's hundreds. I'm gonna go explore all of those, and that's what I do today. So thank you. I agree, and I think that's a great point where giving yourself the flexibility to go where it is, regardless of what people expect of you. Thank you, and congratulations. That sounds amazing. Your career sounds like you're
fun.
Yeah, like a female Jack Ryan kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Driving in Albania, and the driver's like, "Well, your house isn't ready," and the yeah. So it was
Coming out.
whatever I don't know. Because there's so much that's happened. So
It sounds fascinating.
yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I love seeing these amazing adventure women. It's so inspiring, and I think that's what we want to see, right? We want to help more people see the ways that it's possible for them, and even you that did it through your career. Yeah. So there's so many different avenues. There's no one right way to do it.
Right. My goal in life, just to echo your sentiments, is self-actualization. And I haven't done any of the normal things. What a wonderful life.
It sounds like it. I agree.
Self-actualization is the goal. To be yourself to the hilt.
Yeah, to the best you possible.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Linda. What a great goal. Beautiful. Yes, Melina.
Is there like an activity or something that you make it a point to do wherever you travel? Because as much as like every place is very different, has unique elements, there are some common threads, right? Some common elements. I'm curious if that's something you.
I know some people go to like the McDonald's at every place that they travel to see how it's different. I will say it is superior. Like McDonald's pretty much everywhere else is amazing. They had macaroons in Qatar. They had like ribs or something. And in Japan, crazy McDonald's wherever you go. So it is fascinating to see the differences. I think that's fun. I think people look for the familiar in the unfamiliar to have that sense of nostalgia. But yeah, I definitely like to have some kind of art experience if possible, something creative, something where I'm doing something that the locals do. Like in Portugal, I did a mural class where not a mural, like, is it a mural with a glass? Mosaic, that's the one. Thank you so much. Thank you. The M word. And so I didn't realize how tough mosaics are. There's so much work with your hands and like kind of cut glass pieces. It's a very intense art craft. And so I love to do something like that where I can learn from somebody and get that bit of interaction, like actually doing something, make a souvenir, something really unique I can take with me and like have that that connection with somebody. I love those kind of hands-on classes, a cooking class or something like that, something very similar. So yeah, I would try to have that kind of cultural experience.
We're foodies.
You're
Everywhere
foodies?
we go to grocery stores.
Oh, groceries. What do you look for when you're there? Snacks? The main
Whatever.
thing? Yeah.
Just roam the aisles, whatever looks good, but you can find really great things in grocery stores.
Yeah, people really freak out over the Spain, like the fresh oranges to make you your fresh orange juice in the machine, and people like freak out over that, which I think maybe some stores in the U.S. now have too. But
No, grocery stores are the best.
I love that tip. I love that tip, and you save money that way too. You can.
Oh, we don't necessarily buy anything. You just.
What are they eating here?
Oh, and also you can see which American products they have and how they're presenting them.
Yeah. Yeah, Doritos.
You know, in Thailand, they have Lay's potato chips of every weird flavor in the world.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that.
They have shrimp flavored and whatever.
Oh, did you try the shrimp flavored ones?
What was the weird?
What was the verdict?
I don't even know, there were so many.
There's so many really weird flavors of Lay's potato chips.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I used to go to the movies everywhere I traveled because it fascinated me that you wouldn't think that the experience could be very. It is really different. The most different was Switzerland at the time. I don't know if they still do it. Had an ice cream break in the middle of the theater, which actually wrecks the momentum of the film. But as an ice cream lover, I'm all there.
Yeah.
So, but you know, but like you're saying, it's common, there's movies everywhere, but the theater going experience is just a little bit different everywhere you go. And the other thing about traveling alone, it's a big benefit and a time saver, is very often there's space for one, or there isn't space for two. Or I was waiting for a long funicular somewhere, an hour-long line, but they filled the cabin, so there was the line for the single traveler. I'm just flummoxed, and I'm going to ask this as a question, even though I don't know what my question exactly is, because I have traveled, I've set foot on every continent. I've been on every continent on trips by myself in India and Africa and Antarctica.
Wow.
The group tour. And I've planned all those trips, and now I don't know how I did that, and I can't figure it out because now I feel like I'm not good at trip. And I think with the internet and all the resources that are available, like before I could do all my due diligence and cover everything, and now I'm overwhelmed by too much information, and I'm not up to date on the best tools to use to do it, all of the things. And I don't know what my question is in all of that, but I want to get back to feeling confident again, because I know I explored India by myself and found this local tour guide to help me plan the trip, or found this amazing hotel in South Africa, but I wouldn't know how to do that now, and I can't figure that out. So if there's any thoughts from anyone on that.
What do you use? What is your preferred method to research? Do you go on Google? Do you go to social media? Where do you go for your inspiration? Pinterest? Where do you find what you want to do?
Yeah, I normally start by looking for what's a good value to the American dollar at that point in time.
Okay.
To pick the destination in a country that I haven't been to before.
Okay.
So I'm going to be going to Croatia at the end of the month. And in terms of the questions that come up, do you stay friends with people? My travel partner is from Norway, and I met her in Ireland, and we're meeting up in Croatia to do this trip. So I'm no longer doing all of the trips by myself. But yeah, so I guess I start on Google.
You start on Google.
Yeah, I used to like to just get a book and do the Rick Steves or Lonely Planet or whatever, but now I guess I'm starting on Google.
Okay, great. Because Rick Steves and Lonely Planet and all those people are also on Google.
Yes.
So you like to read your information. That's what I'm hearing from you. You like to see it visually laid out in guide format. No problem. So first, Rick Steves does have an app. So I would download that because you can use that on the ground, has free audio tours, and we'll probably have some for Croatia, and he has that updated, and that's just information that you have if you already know you like him and you like the way he presents things. Then from there, I would go and I would Google, top things to do, or whatever you're looking for, unusual things to do, art things to do, foodie things to do, best grocery stores in, and go from there. Google has recently been pushing down independent publishers, bloggers, but I think blogs are a great place to get this information, particularly if you can find somebody who has a great series on that location or who is a local to that location. Like maybe you find somebody who has just a Croatia site, or somebody who, has 30 posts on Croatia, and then you can really go in depth. I did this with my recent Scotland trip, and I was able to, somebody had written posts turn left here. This is what you will see, such a detailed post. And I think that's going to be what you're looking for. So it's a matter of finding the blogs that you like, but also maybe it'll be destination specific. And I think start there. And maybe that requires that you go down to page 2, page 6 of Google at this point, because they are pushing blogs so down. But once you find a site that has a good wealth of content that you like, I think that's a good way to go. You can also absolutely go to, you can still get those physical books. So you can absolutely still get, the guidebooks. I wrote part of the Foder's guidebook to Puerto Rico. And they wrote 2 chapters. We'll be bringing me on for the next edition for 2025. And so those books are still available everywhere, and you can absolutely take them with you. It's a pocket thing that you can have with you. If that's how you know that, you like that, or you like Atlas Obscura, because they always mention these unique little known places based on what you like. It seems to me reading is your thing. So I would identify your blogs, still buy your guidebooks because they still exist. And I do think that the Facebook groups will be really helpful for you as well.
And Journey Women, right?
Yeah, Journey Women is a great one. They have their blog, but they also have tours. They have a community. They have people you can ask these questions to. And I think starting from there, so you're not overwhelmed. and then people can direct you further. Yeah, absolutely.
What was the name of the site, Rick?
Rick Steves, he has an app. So the Rick Steves app has free audio tours that you can use at museums all throughout Europe. Save yourself those €8, and they're pretty well updated. I used one at the Galleria when I was seeing the statue of David. And I mean, he was like, turn left here, you'll go down this corridor. This is what you're looking at. Super detailed.
Steve's, S-T-H-E-V-E-S.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely, Mike.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to acknowledge you. You're so knowledgeable and you're so passionate. I think
Thank you.
all of us in this room as travelers can hear that from you. And I just, from your jumping out and just going for this, I love that you have this lawyer brain out, but you have this passion as a traveler. And again, from all of us in the room, just acknowledge you for everything you're doing. But I guess I do have a question. What is next? You said up until September, you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
What's next for you? Like, what trips, what products, what things, what's going on?
Well, I definitely am already going to be working on the next book, the follow-up, because when you're an author, you have to write. You have to keep writing. So last year was the sequel to this book where it started with being, sorry guys, maybe came out, but I was dumped by my boyfriend of 2 years on my 35th birthday on a sponsored cruise the same day my Facebook was hacked. Pretty wild, right? There's going to be a great start to this next book. And then
Western song.
yeah, right? I had already booked, 12 trips because I thought I was going to be promoting this book, that it was going to be coming out in the fall. The book got pushed to this year. Better for me, obviously, time to recover from all of that last year. But inadvertently had a whole other 12 trips in 12 months challenge that I took last year. The first trip I went was to Egypt, where I ended up being in front of a scarab statue in Egypt at the Karnak Temple, the oldest temple in Egypt. And you had a chance to make a wish. You have people walking around the scarab statue 7 times to make a wish. And so I stood in front of the statue and I had my choice, right? Do I wish for my boyfriend back or do I wish for my Facebook account back? And I will just say that 2 weeks later, miraculously, my Facebook account was reinstated. And so that's going to be the book that I write next. I know that that's going to be something I'm writing, I'm working on, and hopefully pitching. And then from there, I have gotten a lot of requests. I'd like to start some kind of business related to travel, maybe a travel product. I know people have asked me for tours. I do think we're going to move into at least a New Year's tour for solo women that want to start the new year and start their own challenge. So I think at least for 2025, we'll go and take a New Year's trip and hopefully start their own thing. I don't know how deep I'll go with that, but I think for at least a 12 trips in 12 months, like New Year's tour, that people go out and kick off their year right. So those are some of the things in the pipeline.
Travels for you till September.
Yes, so at the end of August, I am celebrating this book tour by going on a 2-week cruise with Viking River Cruises. We are going to Eastern Europe, and I'm going to be seeing 7 new countries in 2 weeks. So it should be very wonderful. Viking is amazing. I don't know if any of you have traveled with them, but they're a great cruise line. They have walking tours in every port, so they have an emphasis on culture and learning and all of that. So, oh, they are. Oh, perfect.
Did you get any discounts? Because I've been trying to book with Viking and they're very expensive. It's like unbelievable.
I am being hosted.
Okay.
If you're an employee, you also are hosted, by the way, because some of my students' parents work for Viking, and they would send them on, on cruises.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, sorry. So
you could just get a job with Viking. Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming, and I'm happy to sign books. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll just get my marker, and I'll be right back.
Sorry.
Absolutely. No, yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I'm no worries. You're all good.
My niece is at the New York Times camp.
Oh,
They're
nice.
senior this year.